In this video, we are going to discuss QC parameters, or otherwise known as quality control parameters, which are found in administration. Down here, QC parameters. And I'll teach you how to fine-tune them for your needs. So to begin with, you'll see that all parameters here are listed in a number of categories: volume, class range, length, speed, and whim. Keep in mind that the settings of these QC parameters apply to everybody's data that's run in the database. So these are not specific to your data that you are submitting logged in as your user, but they're going to be for everybody. So you'll see here, like I said, the categories, and then you'll get the quality control parameters that apply to the volume in this case. And as you click through each of them, you'll get a different description of what exactly the parameter is checking. And then, for example, maximum number of vehicles per lane. This check compares the number of vehicles with a maximum allowed count per lane. So the context will change between the different parameters. In this case, this check's applied to volume. This is an hourly level check, so it doesn't just count, it doesn't just check the entire count itself, but it actually checks each hour to see if there's a maximum over the number you set. Each lane is checked, and this applies to both short-term and continuous data. Now, with all QC checks, Jackalope will stop at the first QC check it runs into that flags your data with a no AADT note, or in other words, it will stop checking at the first instance it finds, in this case, of the maximum number of vehicles per lane, and it will not go further and mention every single case it finds of maximum number of vehicles. So for example, if you had a maximum set here of 4,001 vehicles in an hour in a lane, that's going to be too many. If you had, let's say, a noon positive one direction channel that had 4,002 cars, then, or vehicles rather, the QC parameter would flag with a no AADT note and fail that particular data. If you also had 4,002 cars at 1 p.m. and you had 4,008 cars at 2 p.m., Jackalope is not going to list for you the 1 p.m. and the 2 p.m. errors. It's just going to list the first one that it encountered, which was at noon in my example, mention that to you as having failed this QC check, and then proceed on to the other checks from there. Various checks in some cases just have error conditions that can be turned on or off, and some have warnings. We'll look at a warning in a moment. So the error condition here you can set to be the value that you would like. You can also checkbox here to disable this check entirely, and then you would hit save. You can also choose to have this check fail other data types or not. So if the volume fails here, do you want the associated class, speed, length, whatever data goes along with this volume data to also be failed, or have a no AADT note attached to it as well? And typically we see yes. If this check fails, then probably the other data isn't good either, and so you would want volume and class and speed failed, not just the volume. So let's find one that has also a warning level. Let me find one here. Okay, so here's a check that has both a error condition and a warning condition. You may recall that when you're looking at operator messages, or if you're within a batch and you're looking at either a green, a yellow, or a red button, that indicates whether the data has been errored and has a no AADT note. That will be red in color, or it will be just a warning level and will appear as yellow. Warnings do not have to be deleted or interacted with in any particular way. They're just for your information. So they do not cause a no AADT note flag. They're just going to be informational. So it's basically just a note flag that you'll see there. Again, you can disable one or both. You can set them to have different thresholds however you'd like, and you can copy results to other data types if you'd like. There's also the ability to, in addition to setting the default behavior, to setting site group overrides. So if you had a set of groups that had comparing an average for the interval over the count for the weekdays, and you knew that a certain subset of sites typically fail this error condition, but you don't want them to, you happen to know that their thresholds should be a little bit higher or a little bit lower, then you can add a site group and set different overrides. So to do that, you'd hit the plus sign here. You would find a list of your site groups. You can say add here. Now here we have a site group override, and I could set the minimum value here at a 7, and maybe I want to disable a warning. I do want to copy the results, and I would hit save. You can add more than one site group if you'd like. We can certainly add another one and have that one even have another set of overrides. So if you're to click between these two, you would see which parameter, which is the error maximum value for each type. So for example, Delaware tolls we could set to have a maximum value of 10, and LTPP sites we could have a maximum value of 2. And as you toggle between these, you'd see Delaware is 7, LTPP is 2. I didn't save it, but that would be 2 here. You can also have site overrides, and you can add sites individually. By clicking the plus sign, you can start typing your site number, and your autofill will start bringing the site to your screen, and you can say add. And for site 8002, you can set a different setting here and keep adding sites with the plus sign, or you can highlight and click to the minus sign to remove this site from this particular site override window, and we could say OK here. We'll go back to site group overrides, and I'm going to remove these because I don't actually want them there. They are just for demonstration purposes. One last thing I will say about quality control parameters is after you make any sort of change here, the data that you have already submitted will not be rechecked based on your change in settings. Only data submitted from now into the future after I've made this change will be checked with these new parameters that I set. So just keep in mind that by changing these settings here, previously run data will not be rechecked and reflagged, and etc. In order to have this newly changed parameter applied to data, you would need to either resubmit the data or just reprocess the count or whatever you'd like to do to see the flag happen or go away. But you would need to reprocess data. It won't be applied retroactively. And that's it for quality control parameters.